Hello everyone, Scott here. I'm the founder and CEO of Pillow, and I have Emma with us, who is our senior property manager. She's a property manager for Glasgow and beyond, but also trains all our property managers all over the UK. So a really knowledgeable person about serviced accommodation and short-term lettings. We're making this video for landlords in Scotland that are operating SA units, holiday lets and short-term lettings in any form. Because as I record this last week, the government has just announced that they're going to regulate and put legislation in place for the short-term letting industry, going to kick in April 2021, I think it is. So this is really important because it's going to affect every single owner of these types of properties, but specifically we're going to talk about Glasgow here because the rural areas with holiday homes will probably be fine. They've always been holiday homes and they're not necessarily seen as serviced accommodation units. They don't cause any problems. But the reason this legislation comes in primarily because of Edinburgh, and Glasgow has had a very firm stance on this. So I wanted to bring in Emma just to have a little chat to let landlords know how this is going to affect them, and I suppose hear some of Emma's strategies as how Emma and Pillow in general have tried to avoid this and are making the changes so that we can still operate after the legislation comes in legally, safely and efficiently, and most importantly profitably for our owners. So firstly, this legislation got announced last week, but was this a surprise to you or did you see it coming?
No, absolutely not. I've probably seen it coming for a minimum 2 years, if not
2
more.
years.
So we've known it's been coming and we've been planning for it.
So again, at the moment, a lot of operators, and I always say if you go into Airbnb and check 100 units in Glasgow city centre, probably 95% will be operating illegally in some way. Whether that's not having the correct planning, whether it's not having mortgage lenders' consent or something in the title deeds. So let's take the market, because it doesn't affect us greatly in Glasgow city centre, but it will most people. Let's take the market of people that are just doing total serviced accommodation, short-term lettings, a couple of nights at the weekend, a week here and there, the kind of Airbnb type market. How do you think they're going to be affected by the new legislation?
It's actually quite simple. They'll no longer be able to operate. So Glasgow City Council have already been sending out enforcement notices asking people to cease operating. They are literally going through Airbnb with a fine-tooth comb just now, finding out who's operating it and basically just saying that you cannot do it. They have also said in the letter that you need to have planning permission. And by the way, if you don't, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So the letter is it's quite to the point.
And in this generalising, but in the city centre of Glasgow, Glasgow City Council are very, very clear, we will not be giving you planning permission, we will not be changing it from residential to commercial. So that essentially decimates a lot of the city centre short-term lettings industry. Now, again, that is one area, doesn't affect everyone in Scotland, but it's certainly going to be something everyone's aware of. But we've kind of planned this coming as a company. Even without the rumblings that have been happening in Edinburgh, it was always going to happen. Like, no industry gets left alone. So we've been working hard over the last few years to change our strategy. So what have you been doing to help owners and move away from perhaps the two-night lets, the Airbnb type lets?
So effectively I've been concentrating on getting longer direct bookings. So I've been making connections with lots of companies that will be working in the city now, next year, the year after. So I'm making those connections so that we have the kind of longer term corporate bookings coming in. So
one way to, I don't mean get round it, but one way to operate within the parameters of the new legislation is longer term bookings. Now, you had one, and I loved it because I think it has the biggest balcony in Glasgow. I think that's the best balcony in Glasgow, a 360-degree panoramic balcony, which is just amazing. And historically that was operated short term, but you've just got a 2-year booking?
Yeah, they actually paid for a year in advance.
Year in advance,
so
which is pretty amazing. They paid for a year
in advance, and towards the end of this year they're going to tell me if they're taking another year.
Yeah, so that means that that's not short term, that's just, we've got the underpinnings of a letting agency at Pillow, so we can sort all that out and get the agreements we need. It's not short term lettings, but I've seen you change lots of units over the last few years to this. The difference between this market and the short-term lettings market is that anybody, if you've got one property, you can compete in a level playing field because you put it on Airbnb, booking.com, and you get access to the same the same guests as everyone else. And that's a pay on result, so you pay commission. But the problem with getting corporate bookings and contractor bookings is you need to put a lot of resources. It isn't as easy as just putting it on the portals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also the corporate bookings, they like to know that you have multiple properties.
Yeah.
They get confidence in that because they also know if something happened at the property, that we can remove them, we've got other properties, or if they have a bigger team coming up, they've got, oh wait a minute, we've got 2 more people coming, that we'll be able to get them other properties. So they like the fact that we are a big operation.
We won't give any of our clients away for obvious reasons of where we get them, but we need to save that for our owners. But if you think of all your contractors, all your long-term bookings, the ones that pay a year in advance and stay for years, what fraction of them come through Airbnb and Booking.com and the other portals, do you think?
And now, 10%.
10%. So most of these people come from other areas, and we always say if you're one person with one property, it's going to be very, very hard to get these over someone like Emma because you've got the connections, you've been doing it for years. We put a lot of resources at Pillow. We've got staff members that literally sit and try to get these direct bookings and build the connections. So we put a lot of money into it. But a lot of new owners that come to us recently, especially in Glasgow, say, we want you to work with us, but we only want corporate bookings. We don't want any short-term bookings. And that's a strategy that everybody's going to be trying to get. But that is a slice of the pie that there's going to be massive oversupply. There's not a lot of contractor bookings in comparison to the amount of serviced accommodation units. So I think our resources, we're very lucky to get them. We're continuing to make sure we get the majority of those for our clients. But when all these units disappear from the short-term lettings market, there's probably going to be 100 times more the amount of people fighting for these corporate bookings. So if you had owners with one property, how easy do you think that's going to be for them to just switch from Airbnb to get corporate bookings and get their units filled?
It's a completely different market, to be honest, as well. So not only do they have to change the way they work, they have to change their mindset and how you deal with the corporate clients, because one, they're not holiday guests as well. So there's a lot of hard work that goes in at the beginning to secure your corporate clients, and that's the difference. Whereas your holiday guests, they book online, and the hard work almost comes while they're there as well. So I think they would find that difficult, and an individual trying to get past wee Mary on the reception desk of a certain company to get to the person they need to speak to, that's not going to be easy. But when you have a reputation and you're known in the industry, it's much easier to get past that gatekeeper.
Some of the times we get these bigger companies and we secure a guest, but they want to see a massive amount of stuff. So they need stuff that probably one person with one property or a few properties doesn't have. The procurement procedure for these big companies like insurance companies and financial companies means that they just don't give it to one person. They need certain things, they need certain turnover, certain insurances, certain things in place, and it's quite onerous at the start to get those.
Absolutely, and I've seen days where I've taken corporate clients, they've been over sourcing their accommodation, and I've literally driven them around 20 properties so that they can see what they're like, if they've got everything they need, if they're suitable for the amount of workers that they've got. But if I was an individual operator of one property, I couldn't show them 20 because I physically don't have it. And that's what they want.
You mentioned that we record this in January. You mentioned that you don't have any like guests really. It's all long-term corporate and contractor bookings, and you had a massive occupancy. I can't remember the statistics, but definitely 95% of your properties were let for a full month and stuff like that.
I literally have every single unit in Glasgow city centre is full. I have one departing today, but I'm about to take out a 18-month booking. Should be going in that for the 1st of February, so I'm working on that at the moment, and my Glasgow city centre has 100% occupancy right now.
If you didn't do that strategy, which would work hard to change to, what would your occupancy levels in Glasgow city centre be for short term?
If I was relying on short term, I'd be lucky to be hitting 50% probably, because it's January, nobody.
And you'd be discounted heavily, so you could even if you got 70%, your rates wouldn't be August; they would be discounted.
And let's face it, the national average is 50%. So if you base it on that plus your discounted rates, January you're ticking over to pay your bills.
So we'd mentioned just before we started recording this that you had lots of inquiries and not enough properties.
Yes,
so if there was owners out there that had these properties in the short term, i.e. January, February, there's a possibility you could flip them over and get them longer term guests if they came with Pillow.
Yeah, absolutely. I have client demand at the moment. I spoke to one yesterday who's going to have a demand come the end of February, so this is the right time to kind of flip them over.
Yeah, so if all these units, and I've always said, I said within 3 years 75% of all units would disappear, and that's going to be probably next April. So that's going to be, since I've made that prediction, 2 years, that's 75% of all these units. So with all these units, they're not going to be operating, because certainly in Glasgow city centre you're not going to get the planning. Other areas you might. So that's going to go to people with planning, which would be service accommodation blocks, the Fraser Suites and the Spires, the people that have been there for decades. But with all these units, people are limited with their options. They're not legally going to be able to do it, so they either break the law or they try and compete for the contractor guests, they sell their property, or they flip it back to residential lettings. Yeah. So if there was anyone out there that wanted to be in the service accommodation industry and still be there, because there's many other reasons to be there as well. You can avoid Section 24, you can claim your capital allowances, there's lots of different reasons to do it. You would be willing to take their properties on and look at it from a different point of view. Hopefully get rid of the Airbnb type strategy, the 2 night bookings, and go for 6 months to year bookings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people can get in touch with Emma. Glasgow City Centre and Lanarkshire are your 2 areas. Yes. So again, this happens anywhere in Scotland. Emma is one. We have a Jen, we have other, we have a Lisa, we have property managers all over the UK. But this video is specifically for Scottish landlords. If you feel that this is going to affect you, if you feel your local authority isn't going to give you the planning, there are other strategies rather than just flipping it back to buy to let. But we've been putting time and effort into this for years. Getting the contractor bookings, and especially the corporate bookings, isn't easy. And I've said the phrase, one person with one property is going to find it very, very difficult to get the deal flow to get your properties filled. And again, if you don't get it and you can't do short term, and you've seen contractors, they might be there for 2 years, but if you don't have someone to go in straight away, then your property's empty. And if you don't have the deal flow and the people ready to go in, your property could be sitting empty for 3 months before that corporate comes along. Thank you, Emma. Thank you for watching. Please get in touch if you need any more information.